Going live.
Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday, April 29th, and we're continuing to celebrate his birthday with this delicious raspberry ricotta cake. So, but we have been on the floor all morning, and we are now going to take up some pieces in the housing bill. We have some time to do this one piece right now, and then because this is a piece we've been hoping to include in the housing bill, which is how do we help renters improve their credit score with good steady rental payments. So to that end, we welcome back Becky Wasserman, Counselor Becky Wasserman from the Treasurer's Office, and Becky, take it away. And then we have Pam here as well if we want to walk through some language, the language at the moment.
Becky Wasserman, State Treasurer's Office. The state, actually the legislature, your committee last year asked the Treasurer's Office to do a study last summer in Act 181 to look at whether we could facilitate the development of a pilot program for housing providers to report positive rental payments for inclusion in consumer credit reports. So our office studied this issue for a few months last summer and submitted a report to the legislature indicating that we would recommend being able to facilitate such a pilot. We had looked at other similar pilots around the country and sort of data and research on this issue. And based on that, we recommended creating a pilot program similar in structure to one that had been done in Colorado, which had no more than 10 landlords and no less than 100 tenants as an opt-in program where we would enter into a contract with a third-party vendor that would be the sort of facilitate the credit reporting, and there would also be an optional financial education component along with that pilot for the tenants who are participating in the program. And we would recommend doing this for a 2-year period where we could study the impact on tenants' credit scores. And just sort of the research and data that we found in doing this is that, as opposed to homeowners who have their mortgage payments reported automatically on their credit reports, renters often do not have their rental payments are not often reported. And this is typically their largest payment, and really impacts their ability to build their credit profile. And the credit history is one of the largest factors and on-time payments are the largest factors to your credit score, and can impact a renter's ability to have access to credit or have lowered rates. So we feel that this would help, help renters sort of be on par with homeowners to be able to access credit and build their credit scores. And many of the tenants who would benefit most from this are those who are sort of credit invisible, meaning they don't actually really have a credit report yet, or those who have low credit. And so this gives them an opportunity that they don't typically have to build their credit score.
And we have language that we have seen, and perhaps Cam, given having come off before, we haven't all been able to find it. I know I have it in my bag, but could you pull it up? Is that possible up on the screen so that we can just quickly go through it? We had some concerns. I know Randy had some concerns. I hope they've been alleviate it. I think this is one of the key things we can do, again, to break the cycle, really do as much as we can to break the cycle of poverty. And we have that ability in this committee. We have addressed that with first generation home ownership opportunities. We have created that in other ways. And this is certainly noodles away at that in this, I think, a fairly significant way. If we can enable people building this.
Let me just ask this question of Becky, and looking at what the other states have been doing. When credit reporting is done, is it the credit report of the individuals who have decided and opted in, and are all the credit reports submitted to the credit reporting agency, or is it selectively so that only positive reports are being sent, which is what this proposal, as my understanding, plans to do? I think you mean that the payments are, what payments are reported? Yeah, well, so it's only timely payments. Only timely payments. So the report to the reporting agency, I would argue, is from that as a source is deceptive, because it is only reporting selectively those things that are positive, and not as a true credit bureau report would be from a vendor, a normal vendor. They would report the correct answers, one way or the other. And why would anyone who is knowledgeable about the methodology be comfortable that this is they'd probably be comfortable with the individual who is reported, but certainly in terms of the integrity of the program, I think would be questionable. So I think,
because we've addressed this. This is Randy's concern from the beginning with this. This is not new. And it's an opt-in. So, but I think what you're saying, Randy, your concern is that even for those who've opted in, if they fail to do timely payments, what happens?
And the answer is,
what happens to them?
It doesn't get reported.
They would get unenrolled from the program. I mean, right now, if you are late on your mortgage payment, you have 30 days from this payment to pay that without it being reported. So in Colorado, I think if you have 3 missed payments, you would be unenrolled. We can look into whether 3 or 2 is the better answer, but I don't think the grace period that you get for non-payment of a mortgage wouldn't be that different than what we're saying here for this. So I don't think it's necessarily deceptive.
Are they reporting on a monthly basis a positive or negative report? Those late payments typically result in a hit against the credit report. It may not, for the first one, it typically doesn't, but when you get into the second or third, it does result in a negative report.
So at that point, we would unenroll them from the program.
And is that what's intended here?
Yeah, this is the key. We're just wondering if it would be helpful to look at the language.
I think it would be helpful to look at the language.
Is that so? Cam's going to put it up on the screen, and we can look at it. But it looks stay right where you are. So if you don't pay, do we have a grace period built in for people to, if they've opted into this program, they have a grace period of, a renter would have a grace period of 30 days to pay if they were late.
We haven't.
Do we have a grace period
built in?
We haven't
put a grace period in. We, we would similarly put in language about. I'm trying to find it in here.
It's up, if we can make it,
about sort of being able to unenroll a tenant who is not participating in the program.
Right. So it's designed to see. It is designed, Randy, as a positive program. It's not designed, I think, to be the be-all and end-all with credit score. It's designed to see if a positive history of paying your rent on time has an impact on your credit score. So if it does, then I think we would have this concept. If after the pilot of 2 years of the people who have the opportunity to opt in, who pay on time, and it positively affects their credit score, we have the opportunity to make this, to roll it out statewide and make it a full-time program.
Presumably, you are sending the results of the credit
to someone, a credit reporting agency of some kind. It could be Equifax, it could be and so on. And you're doing it through a normal credit bureau. Has anybody checked as to whether credit bureau would accept from a program like this, knowing that only the good stuff is being reported and the bad stuff isn't?
Yes, that's how it operates in Colorado, Fannie Mae. I mean, there's a number of.
Do they know that these credit reporting agencies know that that's what's being done?
Yes, I mean, Experian is also, I think, was involved in the Credit Builders Association pilot program. So this is, I think, the credit reporting agencies are aware of this. They've been involved in it.
They're aware that negative reports are not being done. That's the real question.
Yes, they are aware. And I think also we have to think about the tenants that this is affecting are those with, the ones who would benefit the most are those with who are credit invisible and have low credit scores. So
from that standpoint, I'm absolutely in favor of that. I have no problem with that.
If they had a missed payment,
it would from the landlords or hear from someone in the real estate business and someone in banking as to what they think of this.
Well,
we did do a survey of landlords.
Look who's here.
We did do a survey of landlords. And our survey, we had 67 landlords respond to our survey that managed between 1 and 1,500 rental units. And what we found from that is that there are already 10 landlords doing positive rental reporting payments, and they represent about 25% of all the units that were surveyed, which was about 1,400. And of the 57 landlords that did not already use it, 48 indicated that they were open to trying it if the cost was low or negligible. And obviously, this is not all landlords in the state. We tried our best to sum this out as much as we could, but that was the response that we got back to the question.
If I could, so disenrollment records, are they kept? So if a future landlord calls into this bureau or whoever's keeping these records, are disenrollments also offered to the future landlord, or is it only purely positive?
So it would be
someone.
I mean, it would be being unenrolled from the program. So the tenants score, if they are unenrolled from the program, would either be the same or worse than it was before. So there would be they wouldn't, if they didn't make a payment and they were unenrolled, they wouldn't be getting a benefit from the program. So there wouldn't be any new information.
Can a future landlord know that this particular essential tenant was disenrolled in the past?
Is that public information?
I don't know that that's public information, but I just don't have an answer to how that's been done in other places. I can look into it, but I don't know how that's been handled.
Okay, and if I could, what's the cost to the state for administering the program? So third-party vendors doing something, you've got training programs.
So we're asking for a $100,000 appropriation. Typically, these programs have been, we've estimated that based on the estimated cost per month to, in general, we found that prices range from $1 to $5 per user per month. The California law that has instituted this type of program statewide allows landlords to charge tenants no more than $10 per month. For the purposes of this pilot, we are proposing that the state pay that fee for landlords for this 2-year period, and then if it becomes a statewide program, the legislature can decide whether landlords can bake that into the cost of
So it's a
rent.
fee to the landlord to administer the program, not a fee to the renter.
Right, and we're proposing that the state pay that fee for renters.
For the pilot, for the 2-year
I get
pilot.
that. I get that. I just want to see which shoe was on what foot.
Right. And the 10 landlords already do this, and they only report positive payments. They don't do of those 10 landlords. They also operate in with a positive cast and not with reporting negative.
With the caveat that this is the landlords that responded to our survey.
Right. Right, well, you had 67 landlords respond. And you wanted to
Question,
use David.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
What's the vehicle for this to go into?
Our housing bill, H 479. So it is, and so the credit score companies are comfortable with this. They've been comfortable in Colorado with it. And in Colorado, how many, they've been doing this for how many years now?
Colorado, I believe they also had a 2-year pilot. It concluded in April 2024. They contracted with the vendor in October 2021. So I believe it was a 2.
And they found it did improve. I assume it did improve people's scores.
Yes. So
it's in our report, which is on our website.
Yeah.
But just
So
refresh us.
at the end of the pilot, they reported that 55% of participating tenants had a positive score band change. The average starting credit score was 570, and the average ending credit score was 632.
Tom?
So I'm generally okay with this. I think your concerns are very valid. And if we were doing this for everything that we were reporting, then these credit reports would be useless. They would be a representation of one's credit worthiness. But I see this sort of like in credit score is a grade. I see this as extra credit. So this can only help their grade. It can't hurt them. I'm relatively comfortable with that, knowing that the grade is still being objectionably categorized through the existing processes. So I'm fine with the language, but
Well, I guess one of the questions is the size of this, because if this becomes very popular and every participant joins from the pool of what effect it would have on overall credit scores in Vermont. The more successful it is, the less valid the credit scores are, and the less useful they are for those people who are paying for them.
it's a grade inflator, so grades.
Exactly, it's a grade inflator. That's exactly what it is.
Professor?
Well, actually, I think that if somebody participates in the program, it's actually allowing them to be on par with individuals who have the opportunity to get there. Their credit scores their credit is not being accurately reported right now. Their risk profile.
The credit of those individuals who are participating and who are paying the bill, their credit score is improving. It should improve because they're being seen by more than one or two other vendors. So that's positive. But the overall value of the scoring system is declining because it is only getting part of the picture. And the reason the landlord wants wants to use credit bureaus is to be able to selectively decide which tenants to hire, to bring on. Now, that's all well and good for the person who does well, but for the person who does badly and for the rest of the pool, it's not helpful because the value of the credit bureau has declined.
But what we're trying to do is actually improve individuals' credit scoring, not a whole it would be great to have a whole population were excited and inspired as a result to pay their rent on time if they're all able. They're not all able to pay their rent on time. I just would remind everybody that. So this gives individuals who are paying their rent on time currently the opportunity to improve their credit score. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to see who of the landlords will participate, who, in addition to the 10 who we think are currently participating, who of the other 67, and who generally in the rest of the state, and how we can help people who are paying their rent on time, which is the vast majority of renters, and how that can help them improve their credit scores. I think this is worth a shot. It's a 2-year pilot, and I think when we get to the point of rolling it out statewide, we have to address who pays for it, and we'll be looking at that, I assume, during the course of the pilot. But we would be looking at some of the things you're concerned about, Randy, which is obviously those who aren't paying their rent on time would be affected.
Yeah, and I think there's an outreach and education awareness piece of this.
Yes.
A tenant can do this on their own right now. They can personally pay and sign up for a service to report. So I think the pilot is a great opportunity to get the word out that this is something, even if your landlord isn't doing, that you can also do. So it might have that sort of secondary impact. You know, I was in New York City over the weekend, and I was in an apartment building and saw on the elevator screen like an ad for, do this to improve your, like,
Oh,
aimed
great.
at tenants.
To
So I
make it
think,
easy for
yeah,
tenants
to
to actually pay to have
boost
their credit score
scores,
improved.
yeah. So I think I think the pilot will have that impact too, of maybe making people aware that this
Well,
is a tool they
That's
can use.
again, one of the questions is, of course, in the kind of situation that you're talking about where a tenant pays to do that, is that payment made with an understanding that only the good stuff will be reported? If they start paying late, that it won't be reported?
A tenant that participates in this program,
No, I'm talking about the program that you see advertised in New York, for example.
yes, I think that's how it's sort of marketed as, use this to boost your credit score, and there's an explanation.
Well, yeah, to boost your
Yeah.
credit score, but I'll bet it's to boost your credit score if you pay on time.
Question, the $100,000, is it in the budget? Or is it coming out of the treasurer's budget? Whose budget? Is it general fund?
My recollection is that the version of the bill this was in previously had the $100,000 in there, and then it was removed when the language was removed. So I don't know that it was ever put anywhere else.
Okay, so it is contingent on having the money to do it. Yes, Dave?
I'm gonna go backwards just a couple steps. Can you just explain very quickly why rental payments are not part of an overall credit score now, whether it's good or bad? Why is this not like a credit card? If it's the leading expense for an individual, why is there an omission here?
Well, just because housing is a leading expense for any individual.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
I think because with a mortgage, you are interacting with the lender who is, required to report it. With a landlord, there's no requirement for them. So a landlord can be doing it,
We could.
but it's just an area
they
where
could do it either way, positive or
they could
negative.
do it either way right now. But it's just, it's not a requirement like it is with other
So
loans
the
or-
treasurer is not interested in that two-way street of reporting of rental timeliness. It's more about the positive reporting aspect, not to fairly show whether someone has been paying their rent, positive or negative.
We were asked to study whether we could do a positive rental payment reporting pilot, and so that is what we looked at.
Okay, thank you.
And I think after the 2-year pilot, we would then look at how would we do a rental credit score program, period. And I think you'd have options. And Peter's been nodding his head. Peter, do you have anything to add here on this?
I don't.
Just identify.
Yeah, Peter Tucker, Vermont Association of Realtors. So, I've been listening to the concern about positive and negative rental payments, and certainly that would be most beneficial. Thinking about a landlord who may look up a tenant, that's not reported and not have any idea of what the actual experience is. So, possibly looking at landlords as reporting this would be the most beneficial outcome. But that's not what they're proposing now.
Well, it is for the pilot. The landlords are
Well, we report positive and
reporting.
negative, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
May I ask Peter a question? So I'm guessing now if a tenant doesn't pay rent and they get evicted and they owe money, that could go against the credit report, right? So that does happen. So there is that fallback.
Can you say that again?
So if you're a tenant and you stop paying rent, you get evicted and you end up owing maybe for damage and so on, then the landlord probably does. Is it common that they do file that against the tenant's credit report negatively? So that's not going to stop. That still is there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I assume so.
Theoretically, it should, assuming the landlord submits credit reports to a credit bureau at all, one way or another, not all do.
Bankers have any opinion on this? It's in the room.
Chris, do you want to weigh in?
Not really.
Okay, then you don't need to. Anybody else in the room that wants to weigh in on this?
30 seconds.
Oh, so now you're changing your tune, you'd like to weigh in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, introduce yourself for the record.
For the record, Chris Delia, President of Vermont Bankers Association. I think as a pilot program, I would agree it's probably worth taking a look at. But I do share the senator's concerns that if you start to undermine the credit report by not showing both good and bad, that becomes problematic in the marketplace.
Right.
So pilot, sure, but let's see how it plays out and then revisit the issue. Because you want accurate information on the credit report, both good and bad.
Right. No, I think that's true long-term, but what it is, the 55% who are positively impacted is encouraging for me. And we would hope, and obviously after 2 years, we would be looking at the entire thing and how we would even manage it as a state.
Well, if I were still a landlord, and thank God I'm not anymore.
Yes, your favorite thing, I remember that you love doing that.
Well, what I would learn from this, what I would do is I would do my credit reports, and if I got a good credit report, that's great, I have a good potential tenant. If I don't get any credit report at all about prior tenancy, and I know where the person's lived before, because I know that landlord or that landlord firm does it, I know it's bad, they just haven't reported it. So again, with a little savvy, you could work around the system and understand what's happening. But again, I just instinctively don't like the notion of essentially doing a false report. It's a false report when you only report half the result.
Well, hopefully it's substantially more than half who are.
Well, that's why I'm glad I'm not a landlord anymore.
Tom, what was your thought?
No, just saying, it's like extra credit. Can't hurt the grade, it can only help it.
Yeah, that's sort of how I feel. I agree. So, at this point, I think, should we just quickly review the language? We have 5 minutes. Should we just quickly, it's not a very long section. And we can, if we feel it would be great to check this off of our housing bill, because we have a lot of other big pieces to review and decide where we stand, which we'll be doing later in the week. So let's just
You want me
quickly.
to switch with?
No, it's okay. Cam can function beautifully from here. Come on up, Cam.
For the record, Cameron Wood, Office of Legislative Counsel. So this is the language that I recall was the last draft that we looked at. So this is going all the way back to draft 4.1 of your committee bill,
Right.
which ended up becoming S-127. And so what we have is this section, it's a positive rental payment credit reporting pilot, has a few definitions here.
Section 6.
This is section 6 of that version
Right.
of the bill. And so the primary kind of piece that you all want to review is subsection B, where it starts. We have the creation. State treasurer shall create and implement this 2-year pilot positive rental payment reporting pilot program to facilitate the reporting of rent payments from participating tenants. We have on or before May 1, 2026. The state treasurer will contract with a third party to administer. So this is set up similarly to how it was done in Colorado. The third party administrator will then enter into agreements. We're on the sub A here. Enter into agreement with one or more participant property owners. Ensure that information to credit reporting agencies includes only rent payment information after the date on which the participant tenant elects to participate. Moving on to the next page here. Establish a standard form for the participant tenant to use to elect to participate or cease participation, which shall include a statement that the tenant's participation is voluntary and that a participant may cease participating at any time for any reason. And the contractor shall offer an optional financial education course for participant tenants. Initially, it was a mandatory as I had initially drafted it, but then we changed it to, you all requested to change it to optional, financial education course. So now we get into the agreement. This is the agreement between the property owner and the contractor. The property owner has to agree to participate for the duration. They cannot charge the tenant for participation. They have to comply with the requirements, provide information as required concerning implementation, and to then assist in the recruitment of the participants in the program. And then, so the contractor has to be in by, I believe it was May 1, 2026. Then by June 1 of 2026, contractor shall recruit not more than 10 participant property owners, and to the extent practicable, no less than 100 participant tenants. And then the contractor is looking to get participant tenants from populations that are underserved and underrepresented in home ownership. and seeking to recruit landlords who offer a variety of types of dwelling units for rent that are located in geographically diverse areas of the state, and a landlord who has at least 5 dwelling units for rent. State treasurer can terminate the program at any time, and there is an interim report in November 2027, and then a final report in November of 2028, and it includes some detailed breakdown of information, including, demographic information about the participants in the program.
Great.
Now, I noticed that nowhere in the text is there any statement that the reports will be positive only.
It says positive
Well, it's,
at the very
I would
beginning.
go back to the beginning, Senator, and say, it's,
How's it read?
2-year positive rental payment reporting pilot program.
Positive, right?
The definition of rental payment information.
Yeah.
Right, it's part of it.
Participants' timely payment.
And the credit score companies are agreed that this is the way that they would, they're fine with this.
The only thing I would say, so when you look at the Colorado language, it specifically says payment or non-payment of rent as far as how that operates in actual practice and whether they were limiting it to just positive information. At this point, I would defer to Director Wasserman. She probably knows a little better than I do in this regard.
Different, isn't it?
And that is in section, where would that
I was referring to the Colorado
Right.
language, which.
And that language is not here.
Here's the Colorado language.
And as ensure that each participant landlord reports only rent payment information concerning a participant tenant's payment or non-payment of rent after the date upon which the participant tenant elected. That's just the words on the page. I don't know how they actually implemented it in reality and whether they limited it to positive rental payments or not. So I just want to be very clear for you all.
Yeah, so they only reported positive payments. Late or missing payments were not reported.
And I wonder what their legislation means then.
It may be in anticipation of future. So what it will be very interesting for us to do is also track what they've passed as a result of their pilot and how they address this exact issue, Randy.
Well, and the other issue, of course, is anybody talk to any of the credit reporting agencies?
Yes, you did. The treasurer's office did.
We talked to a number of the vendors that do this credit reporting. I have not spoken to like Experian or TransUnion, but I've spoken to all those vendors who do this sort of business of sending the reports, and it's happening. So I don't know if we need to. I can't say that I spoke to the credit reporting agencies.
If we're not voting on it today, do you want to see if we can get somebody from Experian or a credit reporting agency to comment on this?
A couple of phone calls.
Anybody want to volunteer to contact?
Well, given the treasurer's office has done this and done the survey, Becky, is there somebody in your office who could check?
I guess we can try to reach out to one of the vendors again to see if they are the Credit Builders Association. I guess I'm just wondering what the question is for us to ask.
Randy, what's the question?
Well, the question is, if you have a program like this and you have a policy that you only report positive results, how does your firm feel about being the implementer of that?
Oh, I think they've already said they are willing to do that and that they are, I don't know if the words are happy to partner on this, but that they are willing partners on this. And
well, really, again, it is the credit reporting agency, the agencies that report to the public. Are you comfortable with this?
So I think I heard you testify that they were.
Yeah,
But you didn't check any of the big ones.
That is hearsay. So if anything, Senator Brock is just wanting to hear it from them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the Colorado program indicates that they did this with the, Experian, TransUnion, and if it has been done, it is indicated in reports that it has been done through those.
Okay, I'm just now,
if you
read the language of the bill and it says positive and non-positive, I'm just uncomfortable with what I'm hearing.
So I think we're past time. I think, Becky, if you in your office would be willing to double check that again for us and speak to one of the vendors. And then I think I'd like to take act, and make a decision on this if we can later this week.
Sure.
That would be great.
That's fine.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much for changing your meeting 3 times.